If you had to guess what MLB teams won the most games in the past 7 years, what teams would you say? Most people would probably go with the Dodgers, the Astros, maybe the Yankees. Those are indeed the top 3 teams. The 4th team, though, amongst all these huge markets, is the Tampa Bay Rays. They don't have the Mookie Bettses, they don't have the Yordan Alvarez's, the Aaron Judges that the other teams do, yet they are just as successful. But how? And can they continue it going into 2024? Looking back on their offense in 2023, the team was led by 5 main players. Those players were Wander Franco, Yandy Diaz, Isaac Paredes, Josh Lowe, and Randy Arozarena. You can see the WAR that these guys put up as well. The big star of the team was Wander Franco, putting up 5.5 WAR in just 112 games. That is on pace for 7.4 WAR over a full 150-game season. Those are some pretty good numbers, but I think you all know what the next sentence is going to be. Wander Franco is not going to be here anymore. Turns out he's not the guy that you want to be leading your franchise. After losing their top player, going out and getting a playoff berth is going to be much harder. They're going to have to work their magic. But what is this Rays magic? Let's look at the 2024 projected lineups. The first thing you may notice is the drastic difference between the right-handed lineup and the left-handed lineup. And of course, this is one of the Rays' specialties, the platoon. Now, the Rays aren't the only team to do this, but they are a team that does it a lot. If you don't know what a platoon is, then you might be saying, why would they change their lineup so much? Why not just put the best players out there every single game? On any given day, though, the best set of players might be different, and it's largely dependent on what pitcher the Rays are facing in that game. Let's look at an example. Here we'll use the second base position. The Rays are going to platoon 2 guys here, Brandon Lowe and Amed Rosario. If you look at their overall numbers, you may think that Lowe should be playing every day. Rosario's numbers don't look good at all, but he will be playing a vital role in the Rays' offense in 2024. To see this, let's expand the numbers. Brandon Lowe was atrocious against left-handed pitching last year. In 63 plate appearances, he put up a whopping 55 WRC+. Of course, he raked against righties, posting a 128 WRC+. This is where Amed Rosario comes to the rescue. After we expand his 2023 numbers, you can see that he put up just a 76 WRC+ against righties, but a 112 WRC+ against lefties. If we do a quick rough estimate and combine Lowe versus righties and Rosario versus lefties to create this Lazario, or I think Rose sounds better, hybrid player, it's a much better player than both of them by themselves. There were only 6 second basemen to reach the 123 WRC+ mark last year. Mookie Betts, Luis Arraez, Ketel Marte, Marcus Semien, Ozzy Albies, and Gleyber Torres. A 123 WRC+ second baseman is normally going to cost quite a bit of money, but Lowe is getting paid $8 million and Rosario is getting paid just $1.5 million. That is not a lot for a spot in the lineup that is going to be putting up this kind of production. This is one of the ways the Rays lower the payroll and still win games. Going back to the lineups, we can see that they're going to do the same thing with the DH position and the right field position. Newly acquired Johnny DeLuca will be platooning with the lefty Josh Lowe, while Harold Ramirez will be platooning with the lefty Jonathan Aranda at the DH spot. Harold Ramirez may seem just like an average guy out there, but against lefties, he was an Aaron Judge, he was a Yordan Alvarez. A 173 WRC+ against lefties is not joking around. Against righties, he's not as good, but that's why Jonathan Aranda is here. These 6 players by themselves aren't going to look like a great team on paper, but using the platoon, they will provide much better production in the 3 platoon spots. That's why a lot of the time people are saying, the Rays just find these good players out of nowhere. They're not finding them out of nowhere, they're just putting them in the best role to succeed. They're maximizing these players' value, which is really what the Rays' magic boils down to. Whether it's them developing the player to fit the role, or them going out and finding someone that can fill it. Other than these 3 platoon spots, there will be 6 everyday players that they will roll out there. To me, you can divide these guys into 2 different groups, the offense group and the defense group. Pinto, Caballero, and Siri are all defense-first players. They are most likely going to be average to below average when it comes to hitting. Paredes, Arozarena, and Diaz, though, have put up much better offensive numbers in the past and are expected to lead this lineup. One thing that is very important when looking at these 2 groups is the positions that they play. Notice that the defensive first players are playing catcher, shortstop, and center field. Those are the 3 most important positions when it comes to defense. This isn't a coincidence either. When you think of some of the past Rays players in these positions, you think of Jose Molina, Kevin Kiermaier, Willy Adames, all good defenders. Putting these defense-first players in these positions maximizes their value, once again going back to the Rays' magic. Now let's turn to the 3 offensive stars of this team. One thing these 3 have in common is their plate discipline. They all have double-digit walk rates. This, of course, means the on-base percentage is going to be high, and that has been one of the Rays' strengths over their recent run. Since 2018, only 5 teams have a higher on-base percentage than the Rays. Yandy Diaz is the one that really stands out with his 98th percentile exit velocity combined with his 86th percentile whiff rate. Making that hard of contact while not swinging and missing is a very rare combination in today's game. He has been a .400 on-base guy the past 2 seasons and thus will be the leadoff hitter every day for the Rays. He's going to be the team's best hitter going into this season, followed by Arozarena and Paredes. Arozarena profiles as a power-first hitter. He also has a high average exit velocity in the 86th percentile, but he doesn't make as much contact consistently. He has a 26th percentile whiff rate. He's a lot more like your stereotypical power hitter. He's going to walk a lot. He's going to hit balls hard, but there is going to be a fair share of strikeouts. Isaac Paredes is a very weird player. Production-wise, he was great last year, putting up an .840 OPS and 31 homers. You would expect a guy with those numbers to be hitting the ball hard, right? Well, Paredes had an average exit velocity in just the 13th percentile, meaning he isn't hitting the ball hard at all. His secret to his success is pulling the ball down the line for home runs. You don't need to be hitting balls at 150 miles per hour to hit home runs down the line, as it's the shortest part of the park. The question is this a skill that he has that he can repeat year after year? Was it just a lucky season? What we do know is that there have been players in the past who put together Hall of Fame careers with this exact approach, mainly Nolan Arenado and Jose Altuve. So it is possible, but I'm more on the wait-and-see side of things when it comes to Paredes. Now that you know how these lineups work, we can take one last look at them before we move to the other side of the game and the side that the Rays really focus on, and that is the pitching. The Tampa Bay Rays and pitching go together like bread and butter, salt and pepper, peanut butter and chocolate. Peanut butter chocolate, great when separate, but when they come... Shout out to the 2000 kids with that commercial. Since 2018, the Rays have accrued the 3rd most WAR from pitchers, just behind the Astros and Dodgers, while being in front of the Yankees and Phillies. These other 4 teams are not like the Rays. They are always at the top of the league in terms of payroll, signing the top starters in free agency year after year. The staff for the Rays will look a lot different this year, however. They're going to be without Shane McClanahan, their ace, for the whole season after he underwent Tommy John surgery in August of last year. Jeffrey Springs and Drew Rasmussen will also be recovering from arm surgery, but they're expected to return at some point in the 2024 season. That date has yet to be determined for either of them, but it is certain that the Rays will be without them at the start of the season. Tyler Glasnow, of course, is also gone, with him being traded to the Dodgers. This trade, however, is the perfect example to describe the Rays' way of doing business. The Rays' magic when it comes to trades. They took Glasnow, who was on his last year of his 2-year, $30 million extension, and traded him to the Dodgers, who, of course, don't really care too much about the contract situation. The Rays know that they won't be able to afford buying out any of his free agency years, so they had the choice to go through this season with him and at most get a compensation draft pick, or trade him now while his value's high and get some pieces in return. They did just that. In return, they got Ryan Pepiot and Johnny DeLuca. Pepiot is under contract for 5 more years, and DeLuca is under control for 6. This is obviously good for the Rays' payroll, and they're getting 2 young controllable players for a guy on an expiring contract. These aren't just any 2 young controllable players though. They are both going to play vital roles on this 2024 team. We already talked about DeLuca platooning with Josh Lowe in right field. They needed somebody to fill that spot. And Pepiot will immediately slide in as a starter for the Rays, replacing Glasnow essentially. Will he be as good as Glasnow in 2024? Probably not, but there's a very good chance that throughout the next 5 seasons that the Rays have him, that he will give them a lot more value than 1 year of Glasnow would. That is how the Rays get value in trades, even while losing a star pitcher like Glasnow. In fact, that is how they acquired Glasnow in the first place. They traded away a veteran nearing the end of his contract in Chris Archer for young controllable pieces, one of those pieces being Glasnow. I think most people know about this trade now, as it's often regarded as one of the worst trades in recent memory, or the best if you're the Rays fans. Just taking a look at the trade tree that it's grown from this, you can see all the value they got from one agent Chris Archer. They got Pepiot, DeLuca, Boz, and Paredes all from the original Chris Archer trade. Instead of letting guys walk in free agency, the Rays will trade those guys to recycle that value and get some younger players, and once they get to free agency, they will trade them. It's a never-ending cycle. This strategy is not guaranteed to work though. We've seen the A's and the Pirates also use this same strategy, but they haven't gotten anywhere near the Rays' success. That's because the Rays are just always seemingly hitting on these trades. If you don't hit on these trades, you'll end up like the A's, trading away Sean Murphy, Matt Chapman, and Matt Olson for essentially nothing. Then your team is going to be without talent for a long time. Getting back to the pitching though, it's not really looking as strong as it did in the past. There are some names in here that you aren't exactly jumping up and down about. Zach Eflin, though, is a name that you can get excited about. The Rays transformed him from a pitch-to-contact control guy into a guy that can still do that, but also can now strike guys out. This led to a great 2023 season, and he looks to build on that going into 2024. The projections look good for him, but for the rest, it's a little shaky. Aaron Savale has never pitched more than 130 innings in a season, and Zach Littell has never even pitched 100. Ryan Pepio and Taj Bradley are young talents, but they haven't really proven much in the majors yet. If this was any other team in the league, this would be a big cause for concern, but for the Rays, I'm not worried at all. Why? It's because of the way they handle their pitching staff, and it's part of this Rays magic. If you look at the top bullpen usages since 2018, you can see all the top 10 teams here sitting around 33 to 3,400 innings. Then there's the Rays, all the way up at 3,900. Now, a big reason why this gap is so big is because the Rays use the opener a lot, or the starter only goes one inning and then a reliever comes in and pitches 4 or 5. That could skew the numbers a little bit, but the Rays starters don't pitch much. Since 2012, only 3 pitchers have thrown over 200 innings for the Rays, even though they've had some great starters in that time span. Those pitchers: David Price, James Shields, and Chris Archer. In the 2022 season that Shane McClanahan was in the running for Cy Young, he was averaging under 6 innings pitched per start, and that is by design. What is the reason for pulling starters so early? Well, it's been quite the topic over the past couple seasons. The third time through the order. Taking data from 2019, WOBA for hitters jumped from 310 the first time through to 326 the second time through, and then 336 the third time through while facing the starter. The FIP went from 4.19 to 4.63 to 4.92. The hard hit rate went from 37.3% to 38.6% to 40.1%. The Rays see these stats, and they know if they want to use their Rays magic to maximize the value of their starters, they want to avoid them going 3 times through the order. This is why I'm not worried about the rotation. These guys need to get through 18 batters. They don't need to be workhorses going 7-8 innings every 5 days. This bullpen will get a lot of work, and it will be good. Historically, the Rays have always had a good bullpen. Once again, looking at the stats since 2018, you can see that they're ranked pretty highly in every statistical category. The 3 main righties in this pen are Pete Fairbanks, Jason Adam, and Sean Armstrong. The 2 lefties that they will primarily use are Colin Poche and Garrett Clevenger. Ideally, these guys are all pitching 60-plus innings this year, which will amount to 300 innings. That is if they all stay healthy. That is roughly 21% of all the innings for this team this year. And these guys aren't just some names they pulled off the street. They're all projected to have an ERA under 4, strike out more than a guy an inning, and they all keep the walks in check. When these guys come in for the starters, the hitters have obviously not seen them yet in this game, so they don't have that advantage that they would have if the starter was still in. Plus, these bullpen arms cost a lot less than top-of-the-line starters, which is another way the Rays keep their payroll down while still getting value out of these players. This approach, of course, was heavily criticized in the 2020 World Series when Kevin Cash decided to pull Blake Snell in the 6th inning after the lineup turned over for a 3rd time. Snell at the time had given up just 2 hits and no runs while striking out 9 Dodgers. He also had 73 pitches, so most people watching the game were very surprised when the Rays decided to go to Nick Anderson in relief. Anderson, of course, was one of the best relief pitchers in the league that season, but he allowed 2 runners to score, and people voiced their opinion on the situation. A lot of people said that in these cases, the analytics need to be thrown out of the picture, but if you're the Rays, that's what got you to the World Series, why stop there? Hindsight is 20/20, of course, but the numbers support these kind of decisions. If they weren't doing stuff like this, then they wouldn't be the Rays. They would be the Pittsburgh Pirates, the Cincinnati Reds, the Oakland A's. They'd be just like every other small market team. Overall, this is the projected pitching staff that the Rays will be entering 2024 with. In 2023, 46% of their innings came from the bullpen and 54% came from the rotation. I would assume that bullpen share would only go up considering that the rotation entering this season is a lot thinner than it was entering 2023. I think this unit will rank near the top of the league because of this bullpen, and if the young starters Taj Bradley and Ryan Pepio can live up to their potential in 2024, it could even be better, but that's not guaranteed. If there was a team to develop them though, I don't think you'd want them to be on any other team other than the Rays. So what do I think the Rays are going to do in 2024? Baseball Prospectus currently has the Rays projected at 87.5 wins for 2024, which would be 12 less than the 99 they had in 2023. I do agree that this roster is certainly worse on paper than it was at the start of 2023 with the injuries and the removal of Wander Franco. Even without Wander though, I think this offense is going to be surprisingly good, even if it doesn't look good on paper with the names that they have. The roles that they're going to put these guys in, I think, will carry this team's success. Pitching, I'm not worried about at all, really. They've always had a good bullpen. This one heading into 2024 looks really good on paper, so I imagine it will be pretty good again this season. Between Taj Bradley and Ryan Pepio, the Rays will develop at least one of them to be their next big guy. It's bound to happen. We've seen this so many times in the past. They'll have good defenders where they need it, behind these pitchers, so they'll get help from them as well. Just when you want to count the Rays out is when they'll pull you right back in. They're going to make the playoffs. Rays Magic 2024, here we come. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next week. Goodbye.